Hi, this is Michael from Strabismusworld.com. Today I wanted to do a video on basically my origin story, how I got into this strabismus field and how I got to know so much about this topic. And not only, I'm always talking about what it is and what you should do about it and various techniques which following videos will certainly get more into. But it's also important to talk about why I'm doing this and what my motivation is, because motivation is very telling. And depending on your motivation, you will be more able to get to real solutions. If you're just doing it for the money, you don't really care about the outcome. Which sadly is what's happening a lot in the strabismus field and what's happening a lot with the doctors who are treating the patients. They don't really care about how you live or how you will have to live the day after they do their surgery or whatever they do. So in my case, I just struggled with strabismus myself for a long time and still struggle, so I'm really just looking to help myself and in that process help others with the information I was able to gather. So I'm just trying to give meaning to what I'm doing and what's happening to me. So let's just start at the beginning. I was born in 1989, which is 26 years ago, or almost 27. And I was a very chubby baby, very healthy, not born with strabismus, not born prematurely, just I was more than 4 kilograms even, so very chubby baby. And like on baby pictures I'm always laughing, so I don't, yeah, there was definitely nothing wrong, I imagine. No one ever told me that there had been ever anything wrong. So my strabismus problem started at around the age of 3 or 4 years. And it was kind of interesting to hear what happened. So I was, at the time, I was going to primary school, and the teachers told my mother, yeah, he has trouble focusing, he's not paying attention all the time to what we're saying, and yeah, it's just weird. It's like sometimes he's living in his own world. And my mother got worried that I might not be that intelligent, or I might just, yeah, not understand what was happening around me rather than not being able to pay attention. So she took me to an institute in Flanders, which is the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium. They have an educational institute that helps struggling students with all kinds of problems. But I don't know what they do with a 3-year-old, but my mother brought me there, and they did all kinds of tests, and I scored normally or even above average. So it's not, so then they figured he's not dumb or he has not low intelligence, so he must not be paying attention all of the time, or he must be unable to pay attention. So then my mother brought me to a pediatric doctor. I don't know what he did, but obviously he didn't find anything. And maybe also a neurologist, I don't remember exactly. And then she took me to various eye doctors. She took me to one eye doctor, the second eye doctor, then the third eye doctor, and only the third eye doctor started to think about maybe he might be farsighted, which is amazing that only the third eye doctor thought about it, because it's a very common condition. And the thing with being farsighted is that your vision at far distances is okay, and even at near distances you can see clearly, but it takes an extra effort, and you cannot sustain this kind of effort for long periods of time. So when they noticed in the classroom that I was paying attention only some of the time. When I was paying attention, I was exerting more effort, and then I was resting when I wasn't paying attention as closely. So that was the problem, and it's so obvious when you know that's the problem. And so I'm just surprised that so many eye doctors didn't know about it. But that's because the standard eye testing or the eye screening is with a very common Snellen chart against the wall, and let's say 5 meters away, and they ask you, can you read the first line, can you read the second line, and so on. But obviously I could, because I'm farsighted. And even when they test on near distances, I still could do it, because the test is very short and I could do it with extra effort. So it's just surprising, because farsightedness is very common, and nowadays, even when I talk to parents with very young children, nowadays they have these auto-refractor or refracting machines, so they can just hold it in front of the child and the machine will tell them what the child's prescription is. And even when it's farsighted, like a hyperopic value, like a plus value instead of a minus value, they just say, yeah, he doesn't need glasses because he will grow out of it. Yeah, he will grow out of it, but he still needs the glasses, so for the time being the visual system can develop normally and there won't be a strain on the binocularity, and he won't develop strabismus like I did. And this is still not happening with most children, and this is a huge hole in the system, and a lot of people are falling through the cracks still at this day. It's very obvious and very simple, but still in 2016 a lot of doctors are not getting it, and it's amazing. And the best example of this problem and how it is impacting children is when my younger brother, he's 3 years younger than me, and when he's also farsighted still, but as a child he was more farsighted, because you do grow out of it to an extent. When he was 3 years old, he started exhibiting the same problems as I did, but very mildly. And obviously when my mother saw that, she recognized it and she immediately took action and avoided the same cascade into strabismus. So he never developed strabismus because he got the glasses in time, and then his visual system just developed binocularly, and he didn't lose stereo vision like I did at a younger age, and he didn't go through all the difficulties which I will mention later on in the video. So when I was 3 and I finally got the glasses, I was already strabismic, but the glasses alone didn't pull out my eyes straight. And when you put on the glasses, my eyes, the angle got a little straighter, but still there was a misalignment of the eyes. So then they did the normal thing they always do. They let's just patch the occlusion therapy. Let's just patch the eye, which is like a half-assed kind of therapy, because you want to develop binocularity. So just patching, which will presumably improve acuity in the weak, lazy eye, will not develop binocularity in a sustainable way. In some cases, when it is not too ingrained yet, it might just get you back on track, but not in my case, because it was already too far, off my normal course of visual development. And so it was actually too little too late, because the patching alone without any more visual training or visual therapy just was not gonna cut it. But they just kind of left it at that. So I got the glasses, I was strabismic. some patching, but then nothing more. And yeah, then a few years later, I think at 5 or 6, you start learning how to read in primary school, and yeah, that didn't go so well because I had confusing input from both eyes, and kind of also kind of tunnel vision. Like the first things I wrote, I tended to write very small. Like I had this very narrow field of vision, so I tried to write very small so I could focus on all the things I was writing. But the teacher, it was too small for the teacher to read. And like even the alphabet, like learning sequences, because it was so confusing I could not see it very well, so to memorize it visually, the sequence of the alphabet was very difficult. And even like I knew all the letters eventually, but even later on I had still trouble remembering the alphabet. So there was definitely a lot of learning issues. And it's interesting to see over my academic career or development how, depending on how my vision was at the time, because there were periods my vision was more stable and then less stable, and then later on the surgeries, which I will talk about, disrupted it even more. But depending on how my vision was at the time, that would determine whether I was more good at math, or more good at language learning, or more good at whatever. So at certain periods in time I had an acceleration in calculus, or an acceleration in my French language skills, or English, or whatever. So that's kind of like, in hindsight, that's very interesting to see. But then, so when I had the difficulties to learn how to read, my mother just took me, like at home, she took me aside every night and tutored me on a whiteboard to get me like to a basic level of reading or just understanding. And then I took it, like, it would have been more intelligent to develop my basic visual skills, so I could just take it from there and learn on my own. But the thing that always happened over the years was just that they give me some crutches instead of doing, like, taking on the problem at a fundamental level. They just helped me on a cognitive level to just learn what I had to learn at that time, but they didn't teach me how to learn, like how to learn, if that makes sense. So I never develop the necessary visual skills that will eventually get me around and help me just develop my own person. So instead of that, they just like, here's the alphabet, here's the words, learn it quickly. But in the end, still I cannot read properly. I have the knowledge of the letters and everything, but I don't have the visual motor skills to read. So like, it doesn't matter how intelligent or how much knowledge I gather to this day, I am not functional enough to like put it into practice. I can do it, but it's like, compared to a normal person, I have a definite and a very strong disadvantage, and I just cannot keep it up. So still, like the visual motor stamina is not there. So let's see what happened then. Like in primary school, I was always one of the top students in my class, even with the reading handicap, because I guess I'm a nerd and I just want to be the best always. And we were encouraged to be a good student at home, and yeah, anyway. But there was already something of a problem in the making, because I was just working so hard even when I was very young. When I got home, I was doing homework for hours just on my own, because I just was very conscious of what I had to do, but it's not a normal thing. And then as I got older, you just try to keep compensating for this visual handicap by just working harder and just trying to organize yourself. But there's a limit to that. Like in the end, there needs to be a structural change, because you cannot keep compensating for this major visual handicap, and you cannot keep working around it. So something had to give in the end. And at 15, I just couldn't do it anymore. Just couldn't work around it anymore, and had this terrible episode, very self-destructive. Let's just say that that could have been the end for me. That was not just so. This is very profound. Like, strabismus is not just on the surface. So if it impacts your functionality, you try to work around it. You try working. So you're almost getting more stressed, and you're going off the normal path and just go. Yeah, there, and then at the end, there's no conceivable way anymore how you could ever go back to normal vision if no one tells you. Because after a while, I discovered fixing my gaze, and then I got hope again. I got maybe a path to normality, but at the time I couldn't see a way out, so I basically tried to end it, and in the end it was a rational choice. Like, if it would have gone on like this, like all the things I experienced later after that were even more horrible. So at the time I was doing so badly, and I thought it's not gonna get better anyway, so let's just end here. And it would have been a rational choice given everything I know now and everything that happened after, and the problems I'm still having. So then at that time I went to a lighter course of study, so I just kind of took a break and studied, like graduated in a less heavy kind of studies. I'm not gonna get into the Belgian system, but anyway. So at 17 I graduated because I have my birthday in December, and then I had to go to university, or I was very motivated to go to university, and I would have studied something in engineering or something in science, but I didn't feel that my vision could sustain the math exercises and the intensive kind of focus, and yeah, I didn't feel that my vision could sustain that, and I was right. So I chose something between social sciences and engineering sciences, I guess, and I studied economics, and I went in so die hard that after the first semester of intensive studies, because I had to make up for the last 2 years I didn't really study math at school, and anyway, because also the vision handicap, but the rest allowed me to get into university with full throttle. And but then after the first semester I already started developing double vision, which was a major problem, because I was already having trouble to keep up, and then all of a sudden the second eye that was suppressed for all these years to some extent woke up and wanted to play with the other eye, but they didn't have the ocular motor skills to do it properly. So then I was stuck with a double vision at the time that I needed my vision most. Like, as a young adult, you just needed to work, you know, you don't have time to get all these basic skills that you needed to develop as a child to get it in order. No, there's no time. You just need to study, graduate, and then go work. But at the worst time imaginable, the double vision popped up, and somehow I managed to finish that year with normal grades, and I passed. And in the meanwhile, I went to see doctors, like just eye doctors, and they basically, like the one I saw said, "There's nothing we can do. The only thing that might work without a guarantee is doing eye surgery, eye muscle surgery, but it might not like help you." Help you with the functional vision aspects. But I was so desperate and I needed a fix, so I said, yeah, just let's do the surgery. But yeah, that made it even worse because my neurology my whole life had developed to be cross-eyed, so I was isotropic with my eyes pointing inwards. And then the surgery put my eyes physically outwards, like I was exotropic and looking out. But my neurology, so how I developed and how my brain developed, was still used to the way things were before as a cross-eyed person. So now my brain was trying to make sense of it and was trying to go back to its old habits of crossing its eyes to read, because when you read as a cross-eyed person, one eye is on the text and the other eye turns toward your nose that it's not seeing, and there's no confusing input. But now my eye was physically, like my left eye was physically stuck outward. So every time I started to read, I was doing this immense Herculean effort to turn it in, but it couldn't because of the surgery. There was a restriction put on and the muscles were shortened and everything they do. There was scar tissue and it was just a disaster. Because then I also, not only had I double vision, but terrible headaches, and then I was starting to pop pain medication to the max, because my reading was already very poor before the surgery, like as far as I can remember, and then with the surgery and the double vision, it just went to like the worst pace ever. And it's still a miracle how I managed to get to university, because eventually I graduated, but it was just torture basically. It was really horrible. And after that surgery, that horrible failure, I went to see other eye doctors. We did like basically the tour of the country, and there was only one doctor who said, yeah, I dared to intervene and to try to restore some control and some function after what happened to you. And so I did this. After my second year of university, I did the other surgery, and it did make it better, but it's still not like it used to be, because at this point I would already be happy if I'm just cross-eyed and I could just read and just suppress again. But yeah, it's still not like it used to be. And yeah, so I was really stuck. I was on pain medication to study, and I needed to study. It was my job, like if you do something, you're not gonna like half-ass what you're doing. You wanna succeed, and especially me, like I'm not very tolerant for failure or procrastination or whatever. So then I did that surgery and it was better, but still terrible. And after my third year of study, I was almost on the verge of giving up. Like I was wanting to end it again, because it was just even worse than when I was 15, like back when I was 15. So I was just getting worse. Like the older I got, the more difficult my situation got. Just because I did not have the basic visual skills to do what everyone was doing without any major effort. Like it just came to them because they developed these visual skills when they were like infants. And I was just struggling to just keep up with basic things. And at that point, it was 2010 I discovered, because at that point my English got to be good enough to do research on strabismus in English, because my mother tongue is Dutch, and so that's when I found out about Fixing My Gaze, the book by Susan Berry, who had strabismus herself and then restored it through vision training at the age of 48, and she even acquired stereo vision, and a lot of other people have done it. So that was a major source of hope. I had still 1 year of study to go, so I thought, yeah, maybe let's just go for it, and maybe I can also restore my stereo vision like Susan Berry did after a year and a bit, and then everything will be alright, and I can just move on with my life, and yeah, just everything will be fine. It was just all a bad dream. So I did all I could to achieve that goal. I had a new I said this was my major goal. Like my studies, I still advanced them, but acquiring stereo vision and restoring my strabismus, like restoring my vision, was my major goal, and I did everything I could to achieve that. But then I graduated, and it was time for me to find real work, and my vision was still horrible, still permanent double vision. So I'd been having double vision for 3 years now, and I was totally emotionally burning out, and so it takes it takes a toll on your body to just go over your limit for so long. And so I found a job, I started working, but after a month I had to give up, I had to let the job go, and ever since then I also had difficulties with my parents, and I had to move in with my grandparents, where I still am today. But yeah, so I had to give the job. I had again a very difficult time. I didn't see any future. So I continued to work on my vision in the hope that at some point it would be good enough for work. And now it's more or less 5 years later, and I'm still trying to make the best of it. But there's no, I don't have permanent double vision anymore, so that's good. I have increased ocular motility range, I have more stamina, but it's a far cry from what it should be. Since a year I can read, follow text, but it's very taxing, and I get very tired very easily, very much pain, like a headache or a jaw ache. So I use audiobooks as a support mechanism, so it takes a bit of the strain of the visual, and it really helps. And it's better than only audiobooks, because then you retain more, because you see and hear it at the same time. So there's good aspects and there's hope. But the problem, my main issues to work on are reading still, because I can read a Time magazine article and that's it. Then I'm falling asleep. Mobility, when I drive, it's very. I like driving. I'm a good driver, but when I arrive, I'm so tired doing the eye movement that I cannot even work anymore. Then reading and mobility are big problems, and even if I would just take public transport, I get sick, motion sick. These, and then the social aspects, when you're involved and your vision is not working and you're just trying to cope with all these malfunctionings in your body, and you're just trying to basically keep it to yourself, then you're not very able to be socially agreeable. So these are the big three for me: reading, mobility, and then trying to be social. But actually the big two are reading and mobility. And because these things are so hard, even just walking, because your head goes up and down, and my vestibulo-ocular reflex is not working normally, so I get dizzy, and then I try to prevent it, and the more effort you do, the harder it gets. So yeah, you should go against your instincts. So even then I get very dizzy. What was I about to say? So yeah, reading and mobility are big issues, and even if I would try to do a less intellectual job or less reading, it would still be an issue because I would get so tired, and then I wouldn't be able to take care of myself anymore, and I have to I just also have to sleep a ridiculous amount, like 10 or 11 hours a day, which cuts into productivity time. And yeah, anyway, so this is where we are, and this is why I'm still working on my vision. It's not very visible anymore, but the major issue is that my left eye is still very restricted because of the surgeries, and it's very difficult to get it to the the outer positions and get it to move just fluently with the other eye. And if you constantly have to do effort and to strain and dry eyes, it just messes with you. So I hope this was kind of informative. It's just my story. Maybe other people identify. I know not everyone with strabismus is this affected by it. Other people have normal lives, or near to normal lives, and it's just a bit of a nuisance sometimes. So that would be the ideal position, that you have a normal life, and aside from that you try to improve your vision. It's not very recommended that you get to the point where I am and you're not able to work and not able to sustain a normal life, but that's how it happened to me. And now I'm hoping that I can restore my visual functionality to a point that I could go work part-time, or just have a normal life and sleep less, because the irony is that for the rest, like the rest of my body is very fit. I eat a lot, and I don't gain any weight because it's so energy intensive to maintain my vision. It's very inefficient. It's a very inefficient machine, basically. It's very fuel intensive. So this is it. This video is already way too long, so I'm gonna end it here. I will be making a video about alternating occlusion glasses next time. This thing. And I'll see you soon. Goodbye.